Hey there, and welcome back once again to Five Nights at Freddy's in Real Time by Real Time Studio over on GameJolt. Last time, we pretty much got the final ending to this game, and it left me feeling odd, to say the least. I normally leave my thoughts on the game story on the final part, but I had a lot of thoughts on this game story in particular, and I needed to mull over all the game's details before I was able to really give my conclusive thoughts on it, so I decided to dedicate an entire video to it. In a way, this is like a story breakdown because we're going over all the details story-wise. However, after the deep dive, I'll also be critiquing the story a little bit, giving its delivery, because I do have my issues with it, and it overall has left me a little bit mixed. I think part of the reason why I initially felt disappointed by the story is because of how much hype this game got very quickly. The game's GameJolt page is sitting at almost 25,000 followers right now, which is a lot for GameJolt. Especially fan games in general, it's a lot. It's pretty much one of the most followed fan games, period. And with a lot of hype comes a lot of expectations, sometimes to an unfair degree, and I think part of that affected my own expectations of the game and its story. Despite the immense hype, however, because of how the game itself focused on the idea of new characters and a new storyline, I was still looking forward to the game's story, regarding what new ideas could come from this storyline following FNAF 1's events, and I'm not sure if In Real Time fell short of those expectations really. We're here to be constructive about the game's story and how it could be improved upon, especially if they ever continue this story in a sequel or anything like that down the line, or even consider it. With that said, we need to start at the beginning, but it's important to mention that In Real Time story isn't just limited to the game, but rather a VHS series on YouTube called the Monitor series, made by a bunch of different creators in collaboration with Real Time Studio, which provides additional context to the game's story. Some of the videos from that series actually make an appearance in the game, so there's no way I can talk about this game's story without talking about that VHS series. But first, we must start with Donavan at the beginning of the game.
What is this? Where am I? Oh no. No. You!
You're going to be in here for a long time.
I know what you did. I know what you did to my daughter. To all those precious kids. No one's getting away with this.
Alive.
This cutscene already portrays Brother as the antagonist, but as we go through the game, it may not be that simple. After this cutscene, we see a variety of newspaper clippings providing context for the game's world. The founding of Fazbear Entertainment in 1983, Fredbear's Family Diner, the death of a co-founder's son, the disappearances of both owners' children leading to their separation in 1985, missing children on June 26th at a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, a new location featuring new animatronics, which closed after a few weeks. Another new location opened in 1988. And finally, a help wanted ad in the paper. Maybe the one that Donavan ends up answering. So far, it seems like the main lore in this game is consistent with official FNAF lore, but we can't guarantee that for every detail, or rather, we shouldn't assume that. However, in this game, it's all about Donavan. Donavan starts his night shift on January 14th, 2003, according to the FEC tool we unlock throughout the game. Now, the first night has no phone call, so Donavan learns firsthand that the animatronics actually move around the facility freely. After night 1, Donavan makes a recording, pretty much showing his reaction to the animatronics' movements.
I'm just watching some big fluffy robots. What could go wrong, right? I'm like you. I didn't believe in all the, controversy. Look at this. Okay, I started the recording at... There! See it? He moved! The bunny, his ear totally moved. But That's not all. I thought that was just some endo servers acting up from some leftover power, but no, 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 no. Oh my god, what? I knew I wasn't crazy. Oh my god, holy fastballs!
Since he never got a phone call on this night, it kinda explains his surprise at the night's events. At the end of the recording, he notices a figure on the cameras, but we never find out what it is. On night 2, he actually receives a phone call this time from Phone Guy, who explains that the phone line was disconnected, which is why he never called. Maybe someone didn't want them to talk? He then explains the lights indoors in your office along with the camera system. On night 3, Phone Guy reveals that Donovan's life is actually in danger. That's when you have your boss fight against Foxy, which is actually a pretty cool segment and a nice variation to this game's gameplay structure. After night 3, Phone Guy reveals that Fazbear Entertainment knows why the animatronics are moving. They're possessed by children who had went missing here years ago. Of course, that truth was covered up long ago. Despite what they're doing, they're not trying to kill you, they're just lost, confused. They can't tell the difference between you and the one who took their life over a decade ago. After all, they're just kids. On night 4, you find out that you now have access to more cameras within the restaurant, specifically the back room, the kitchen, and the front door. Now this is where things get a bit interesting. In the back room, you can see a rather familiar figure, the spring body suit. In fairness, it's actually really hard to see when you have a video paused or it's like on one frame. It's a lot easier to see it with the camera moving. But this is pretty much matching what we see in the minimap section of the game, where you can literally see a suit right next to an arcade machine. Now at first I wasn't sure how to interpret this exactly. After all, the game page literally states, relive FNAF 1 and explore the story 10 years later with moving animatronics, a new sequel storyline, and hidden characters. Now, I find it hard to believe that there's an Afton in that suit, because in this game, the back room isn't so hidden like it is in FNAF. A literal maintenance crew had to install the camera inside the back room in the first place, so unless they had no sense of smell or sight, it's hard to believe they never noticed an almost dead corpse in the suit. This doubt holds even more water given what happens later on, so for now we'll leave that detail alone. After night 4, we play an 8-bit minigame, where Brother needs to find drawings posted on a wall, and once he finds them, he distributes them all over the pizzeria. As Brother is about to leave, he notices that the doors are open and the screen turns to static. You can actually collect these drawings in game, which personally didn't mean much to me, because if you collect them all, you get a star, and that's about it. Maybe it was just meant to be a collectible feature, but I kinda expected a more interesting reward, right? I wanted to know why was Brother posting these drawings all over the building. Some of these drawings are literally outside of the restaurant, so why would Brother go to those lengths? I mean, I was hoping to find that out, but that never really came to fruition. Part of the reason why I was also expecting this is because some of the areas where you collect these drawings, like the parts and service room, back room, and even outside, are only accessible after purchasing access to those areas using the in-game currency that you gain by playing the nights. With that said though, we move on to night 5, where everything continues as normal, though you once again don't receive a phone call. The night continues as normal, but around 4 AM, you notice a car pulling up next to yours. Pretty random to get visitors at this time of night. At the end of your shift, you walk to the entrance until you're rapidly approached by a purple man, and the game crashes. We then hear a recording made by the phone guy addressed to you.
This audio recording is being left to Donavan Sheehan. If found, return it to its place of origin. This is not meant for you. And now, Donavan, I'm speaking to you. I don't know why I couldn't contact you tonight. I don't know what happened. So I suppose someone didn't want us talking after all. You are not the first person to pass under my watch, and you likely won't be the last. Hopefully, you will find this message, if your spirit roams the halls like they do. But who knows how long they have left. Just know that I did everything in my power, everything, to keep you going. I should have told you to leave sooner, but that doesn't matter now. There's nothing more that can be done for what they have become. And now, no one can do anything else for you.
They pretty much confirmed that you, Donavan, are dead. He couldn't reach you again tonight, so it seems clear to them that someone didn't want you two to be in contact. You aren't the first one to die under Phone Guy's watch, and sadly, you probably won't be the last. Right after this, we see a video clip showing someone entering the pizzeria with keys. This is actually a small segment from one of the videos in the Monitor series, so I'll cover this part later. Overall, a very weird way to conclude Donovan's story, seemingly, but we haven't covered the VHS series yet, so for now we'll put a pin in that. Afterwards, you now play as Michael, almost a full year after the events on Night 5. Now, in some ways, Michael felt more like a means to an end when it came to this part of the game, mainly because there's no story significance when it comes to Michael. The only main important part is that he's the one that's interacting with Brother, or rather hearing his monologue in Night 7. With regards to Donovan's story though, Michael doesn't really have any significance, unless Michael is somehow actually the phone guy that was in contact with him. However, there's nothing to suggest that, so it seems like a moot point to even argue that right now. Either way, after completing some challenge nights, you unlock Night 6, where a new animatronic jump scare starts to appear. A duck, with a familiar facial structure, similar to the suit that you can see Donavan stuck in at the beginning of the game. This could suggest that Donovan's now possessing the duck animatronic now, but where did it come from? Truthfully, no clue. This duck animatronic isn't mentioned at all by Phone Guy or anywhere, really. It's a completely new character. But to be fair, we also have Sparky the dog that is also in this game and is pretty much a random inclusion. It's kind of weird, and unfortunately it doesn't really go anywhere, right? We don't really learn anything about this random prototype looking animatronic. Regardless, we get an 8-bit minigame after this night, where you're moving through the woods as a duck, coincidentally enough. The ambience during this minigame is rather unsettling at times. In the woods, there's a small pond, a house, and a campsite nearby. You can only access the pond through a locked gate, with a key that you can find on one of the paths in the woods. When you get the key and enter the pond, you start to slow down, and the pond turns to red. Then, a purple man emerges from the woods and approaches the pond until the screen turns to static. Now, I get the feeling that this minigame is actually an allegory for the murder of one of the children, where the purple guy lures a child away into the darkness, quote unquote, right, into the shadows, the back room, whatnot, which is in this case the pond, away from home, away from the public, and kills them. Now, specifically because of the duck imagery, right, and the fact that it's possible that Donovan's in a duck animatronic, it's possible that this is actually the death of Donovan's daughter. After Night 6, you can then complete the other challenges, which include 420 mode, but they don't lead to any new minigames or cutscenes. That of course leaves you with Night 7, which is essentially a cutscene depicting Brother's monologue to you, aka Michael.
I was broken my whole life, but now I can see mine's coming to an end. I thought this could be some sort of purpose, a sort of difference against him. But things change, and so do people. They warp, they turn, they twist, they're broken into the shape of a monster, with jagged edges, bruises and scars, and infinite memories of a dream that couldn't happen. The existence of your death being a myth, a conspiracy, just a theory. I'm not a daughter. I'm a brother to many. A brother to most. The stage is empty. Their seats are cleared. Their servers are broken, forever tucked behind the curtain. Their building is rotten. Their parts are deteriorating. And after one last night, the game is over. No more songs, no more sleep. forever tucked away by the darkness. There's no one left to save them. There's no one left to save me.
A very nice, kind of fitting monologue for Brother, and it kind of reveals a lot about his own psyche, right? The way that he thinks, and essentially the changes that he goes through. First off, one of the biggest changes, right, is the fact that if you've noticed his subtitle color, it's plain white now, whereas at the very beginning of the game, it's actually red when he's talking to Donavan about keeping him in the suit, which is already a change in and of itself, and Brother's entire monologue is about change. At the very beginning of his monologue, he says that he was broken in his old life, and now his life is coming to an end. Hence, another change. Kind of ironic considering that Brother is essentially a dead spirit, so it's like he's saying that his life as a spirit is about to end itself. With regards to change, he also talks about how he believed that he could have been a sort of difference against the person that supposedly killed him, right? Maybe kind of in like a similar role to like the puppet from FNAF 1. However, people change. In his words, they twist and turn. They're broken in the shape of a monster, with jagged edges, bruises and scars, and infinite memories of a dream that couldn't happen. Here he's talking about the spirits, especially the child spirits, right, who have pretty much died prematurely, right? They now are stuck imagining a life that they can no longer have because their lives were taken away. Then he goes on to say the existence of your death being a myth. I think in this case he's talking about how, in general, we as humans, we don't really think about our own deaths like that, especially children, right? You don't really imagine as a child, right, or at least I guess the average child wouldn't normally think of some, what does it feel like to die, right? Like it doesn't seem real. But with these kids, that's not really the case because, well, they're spirits. They have experienced stuff. They know what it feels like. And part of that is probably what changes them. It's probably part of the reason also why they're so aggressive towards the guards, right? Again, these aren't just innocent kids. They're kind of looking for vengeance as well against the one that killed them. And because we look so much like the killer, they pretty much take out their anger on us. Now, the next part of his monologue where he says, I'm not a daughter, I'm a brother to many, a brother to most. So for one, right, I already said that Brother is pretty much possessed by Donovan's daughter, right? That's pretty much seemingly the case given the Monitor series, which we'll talk about later. But even so, given the dialogue in the beginning cutscene and looking at this, right, it seems even more clearer that Donovan's daughter did indeed possess Brother at some point, right? But I think the change that Brother is talking about, right, is also applying to themselves. They are no longer just Donovan's daughter in this platomatronic. They are now someone different. Now, the whole line about them being a brother to many, to most, I'm not exactly sure why. I was actually wondering why, in general, this character was named Brother, right? Because it's a very specific name, especially when you consider the history of FNAF in general. There are many ways where this could have gone, but we don't really know why Brother is considered a brother to many or to most, so that part is still a mystery. And then the final part of his monologue talks about how the restaurant is now abandoned, and at the very end, there is no one left to save them, and there is no one left to save. And this is pretty fitting, considering after Night 7, if you go back to the main menu screen, for example, 1, there is no music anymore, and 2, you do not see any animatronics walking past the main menu anymore, like you have seen in this video. It's literally just static, and maybe in a way that symbolizes that they have found peace, but that's, again, a bit of a stretch. For all we know, they didn't even really find peace, right? We just know that in some capacity they are dying, at least in Brother's words, right? Their life is coming to an end. So of course, that concludes pretty much everything that occurs in game, with exception to video clips from the VHS series that appear in game, because I think those should be discussed as part of the VHS section. Now, just a small thing I want to say, if you just experienced a story like this with just the game without the Monitor series, I think that the story itself is kind of lacking because, for example, the whole point that I'm talking about with Donovan's daughter possessing Brother is mainly supported by the Monitor series because, again, Donovan's daughter is only mentioned at the very beginning and that's it, and along with Brother saying, "I am not a daughter," but, you know, that's two very loose threads to connect, and really most of the evidence that points to Donovan's daughter possessing Brother is in the Monitor series. So personally, trying to see the story from that standpoint, like, does the story stand very well on its own without the Monitor series? No, I don't think so, but since we are talking about the Monitor series, we need to move on to that. However, there is one secret that I never found myself, but this person actually found, cracking bananas, where behind the restaurant, specifically I think this is night 6, you see what looks like a body or maybe an animatronic shell outside behind the restaurant. You can tell it's Michael, the one that's walking here, and it's not Donavan. And it makes me wonder, is this supposed to be the duck shell animatronic thing, or is this supposed to be Donovan's lifeless corpse? It's very weird. We don't really do anything about it, so I'm not really sure. I'm leaning more towards the animatronic shell angle, but I don't know, it's just very weird, and I'm not sure what to make of it. A bit of a weird one, to say the least. But now, we have the Monitor series. I actually reacted to the series almost a year ago when it initially was uploaded, but I took a look at the series again after beating the game to try and get a better understanding of what's happening, and obviously now with the context of the game, the series itself actually makes a bit more sense, but at the same time, there's still a lot that I wish was in game that I'll talk about later on, of course, once we're done actually covering everything. Now, to be clear, I'm not actually sure if the VHS series actually matches up with the game story 100% anymore. After all, the VHS series came out almost a year before the game did, so changes during that time with regards to story is definitely possible. I think this is why the game only shows some of the videos from the VHS series rather than just showing all of them at once, so take this section with a grain of salt. It's hard to tell what from this VHS series actually does apply in terms of canon to in real time. So of course we start with episode 1, which actually appears in FNAF in real time as Trespassing Part 1. Now, if you're interested in watching the VHS series, I suggest you visit the playlist linked below in the description, but I won't be showing the entire VHS videos here, really just snippets. In this video, we have an intruder inside the restaurant. Everything looks rather normal, until they reach the back room, where we actually see Brother laying down in a corner. As the intruder approaches Brother, all of a sudden it moves and the arcade machines act up. All the animatronics are acting up, and the intruder starts to hide, until they are seemingly caught by Bonnie. Now, if you've noticed, there's no spring bodysuit in the back room of this video. Hell, there's barely anything in this back room, which certainly doesn't match the back room's aesthetic and appearance in-game. This might just be a continuity error for the game and VHS series, given that the VHS series came out over a year ago, so it's hard to give this difference, this inconsistency, much stock. This is part of the reason why I said take this section with a grain of salt. It's hard to tell what actually changed. Maybe at this point in time, when they were making the VHS series, they didn't really plan out the backroom's appearance. Now, as for the continuation of this video, we actually don't see it until episode 8, the final episode, but for the sake of storytelling, I think we should skip straight there. The video makes an appearance in FNAF in real time as Trespassing Part 2. For some reason, the animatronics stop approaching him when the intruder tells them to wait, and then they just start to wander around. As the intruder follows Freddy, they find a Brother kneeling on the ground, staring at a drawing. The intruder then puts the camera down and proceeds to hug Brother until the video ends. The video credits reveal that Donavan is indeed the one hugging brother, and I believe that's because Donovan's daughter is possessing the plate-animatronic. Now, aside from the beginning cutscene, this is pretty much the only other time that I'm referencing Donovan's daughter, right? In the very beginning of the game, we hear that Donavan accuses brother of doing something to his daughter and to all of those children, but we don't really know what that means, right? And we don't really hear about Donovan's daughter or the children that much for the entirety of the game, aside from like the missing children incident. And that's part of my criticism with the game story, but that's for later. Right now, we're talking about Donovan's daughter, and you'll see why I think Donovan's daughter is the one possessing brother in the first place through the Monitor series. Now, I just said that Donovan's daughter might be possessing the plate-animatronic, which would make the conflict between Donavan and brother rather confusing in the beginning of the game. And I think part of the reason why there is this conflict is because of the change that brother spoke of on night 7, which might explain this weird disconnect between Donavan embracing brother and now kind of antagonizing brother. Now, of course, we've discussed Donovan's first home recording, which is actually another one of the VHS videos, aka episode 2, which was essentially his reaction to the animatronics moving during his first shift. Now, episode 4 of the Monitor series actually takes place after night 2. Night 1, where Donavan makes contact with a day manager at another Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, indicated by the date January 14th, 2003 at the top right. This isn't their first conversation, and the chat suggests Donavan wasn't there to just work as a security guard. If anything, it gives the idea that Donavan might have been investigating Freddy Fazbear's for a while with the support of this day manager, and has seemingly struck gold here because of the fact that these animatronics are actually moving around when they shouldn't be. Now, after episode 4 of the VHS series, this chat with the day manager, we have Donovan's second home recording, aka episode 5 of the Monitor series. Now, to be clear, both of these recordings are in-game, but they're shorter versions of the home recordings, and they don't really remove much context, but in general, if you want to see the full thing, you're better off watching the VHS series. The second recording shows Donavan explain how he's made contact with the location manager from Freddy's in Utah, actually, talking about the weird occurrences with the animatronics. The manager seemingly agrees to make a plan to take out Freddy Fazbear and the robots, especially since this manager has had similar issues in his own location. Now, besides the very obvious name of FNAF, it's hard to tell if this guy can actually be trusted, especially considering the events that happen later down the line. Of course, we also learn that William Afton supposedly died weeks before the missing children incident, which is definitely different from official FNAF lore, and suggests he might not be trapped in the suit in that back room. Donavan even goes further, saying that Afton's the one behind the murders. Now, don't ask me how he somehow figured that out, because that's quite a leap already as it is, especially if he supposedly died weeks before the children were missing. How the hell did he get to that? No clue. Of course, he ended up setting up a wireless connection between the restaurant's camera and his tablet, and as he's going through the footage, he notices a mouse cursor moving on screen.
I didn't switch to that camera. I think someone followed me home.
A struggle ensued, and it seems like the intruder managed to take Donavan out. Now, at first, I thought this was a weird inconsistency with the game's events, thinking that the intruder must have killed Donavan. But thinking about it more clearly, that's not quite true. There's nothing to suggest that the intruder planned on killing Donavan. In fact, I'm sure the intruder visited his home for another reason. Episode 6 of the Monitor series shows a recording of someone accessing Donovan's PC, deleting 55 video files ranging from June 2002 up to January 2003. After that, they open up a text file titled "For Dad," which was a nice little message left for them while at work. That text file also gets deleted. It seems clear that the intruder, after knocking out Donavan, got access to his computer and deleted those video files. It's not clear what were the contents of those files. They could have been video files from Fazbear establishments provided by FNAF, but we'll never know. This is probably the main reason why the intruder followed Donavan home. The question is, what could have been on those video files that was worth breaking into his home for, right? I mean, it's not like they have any footage of missing children or anything. We haven't heard of any incidents like that happening within that time frame. Of course, now all that's left are episodes 3 and 7, the commercial videos that you can find in the in-game catalog as well. However, the in-game versions only show the actual commercials, whereas the VHS videos actually show more. Episode 3, aka commercial number 1, actually shows a night guard's last moments with the animatronics, which all surrounded the office. The video ends with Freddy saying that they didn't mean to scare you, but you'll be here for a long time. I think this is in connection to what Phone Guy said about Donavan not being the first one to die under their watch. Episode 7, on the other hand, aka commercial number 2, shows an animation of a TV slowly moving back, with the text, "Don't go," until Brother finally appears. Under a spotlight, towards the end, a drawing flips around, showing a guard and their daughter with the text, "I love you, Dad." Now with all these videos and everything we know from the game, what exactly happened to Donavan? I think Donavan was a security guard, way before his time in 2003, possibly at another Freddy Fazbear's location. He had a young daughter who unfortunately went missing in 1985, the missing children incident. He's been looking for her ever since, and finally got a lead, taking him to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza once again in 2003. Only this time, he might have struck gold. The animatronics are moving rather strangely, so he contacts a day manager in Utah, one that he's been in contact with before. After night 3, he learns the truth behind the animatronics, the murders, and plans to take down Fazbear Entertainment once and for all, with the help of FNAF, but it seems like he attracted unwanted attention. Despite all the potential evidence he collected, someone broke into his home and deleted all of it. Now this final part is where the timeline gets really muddy for me. We know that Donavan must have visited a restaurant at one point, and hugged Brother, based off the Monitor series. Of course, this also shows up in-game as well through the Trespassing Part 2 video. This mainly makes sense if Donavan knew that the animatronics were possessed by child spirits, aka their own daughter. Don't ask me how he knew Brother was possessed by his daughter specifically, there's nothing explaining that from what I saw. Don't even get me started on the fact that the videos depicting those events are titled Trespassing, suggesting he's not supposed to be there. How does that make sense if he's working there during the night? If this happens before he got the job as a security guard, then where did those keys come from? Also, even if that's the case, he apparently didn't know that they were possessed until after night 3 when Phone Guy tells him. Unless he somehow knew that they were possessed this entire time and just never alluded to it and pretty much acted dumb. But I highly doubt that. That seems way too convoluted to really make sense. However, even with everything that I just said, that all kind of conflicts with the Night 5 ending where the purple guy is seemingly killing Donavan, placing him in that suit. So, with that said, right, it seems like the purple guy kills Donavan and is the one that puts him in the suit. However, even having said that, the game itself makes it sound like, or rather Donavan makes it sound like it was actually Brother who puts him in the suit, which would make even more sense because, again, you know how there's that conflict between Donavan and Brother. It would make more sense to have that conflict if Brother, the one that Donavan just finished hugging, being like, oh, I'm reunited with my daughter, is the one that puts him in that suit in the first place. In general, when I first beat the game, the ending to Donovan's story was very confusing, and now looking at the Monitor series all over again, it's even more confusing, just because I don't know which way to go. The game and VHS series makes the idea of Brother putting Donavan in a suit much more satisfying, but we can't ignore literally seeing the purple guy having some sort of involvement in Donovan's death. Again, especially considering the fact that right after purple guy gets to Donavan, we hear the clip from Phone Guy saying Donovan's dead. That kinda leaves Donovan's story in limbo, though I would prefer it to just be Brother responsible for his death. I think that's a lot more satisfying, right? A lot more dramatic. The daughter pretty much killing the father, essentially. Though not really the daughter, because they kind of change. Kind of weird. As for the rest of the story, Brother and the other spirits seemingly die out, leaving Golden Freddy all alone, unable to move on. Hold on, I know. Golden Freddy came out of nowhere, and originally I had a section where I discussed this, but I cut it out because it was kind of rambly. Essentially, what I'm talking about here is after Night 7, right, when all the spirits are supposedly free or die, you go into Night 7 again, and there is no animatronics in-game. Except for Golden Freddy, who is in the kitchen and is always in the kitchen now. Literally, normally throughout the game, Golden Freddy is like a rare spawn in the kitchen camera, starting from Night 4. But now on Night 7, when everyone's gone, Golden Freddy is always in the kitchen. You can literally spam the kitchen camera and you can hear his jump scare over and over and over again. So that's what I'm referring to. Essentially, in this case, what I think is happening is Golden Freddy is now there because if you remember what Brother said at the very end, there is no one left to save them, there is no one left to save. And I think part of that is Brother saying that Golden Freddy is not someone that they could have saved, or maybe Golden Freddy was not willing to be saved. We already know Golden Freddy has the reputation of vengeful one, so maybe that reputation still sticks around here. Maybe Brother could not save Golden Freddy, and so after all the spirits quote-unquote die or leave, Golden Freddy is left all alone. That's pretty much what I'm talking about here. And for the most part, that covers everything in the story from what I understand anyway. And now I can give my actual thoughts on it. I haven't done that yet because I actually needed to understand what was happening in the story. And to be clear, I have a much better understanding of the story now, I think, unless I somehow got this all muddled up somehow. I doubt it, but I think I got a grasp on the story. Personally, I would say my opinion of the story is definitely higher than it was when I first beat the game. Mainly because when I first beat the game, I didn't know what the hell happened. I was literally at a loss for words. I was like, what actually happened in this game? Now I have a better idea, right, with regards to Donavan. But I am still left kind of disappointed with how I feel like they could have done more in terms of delivery. In particular, they could have done more with Donavan and Brother. I feel like if Brother is truly possessed by Donovan's daughter, I think having more of an interaction between the two of them, especially considering Donavan actually hugs Brother in the Monitor series, I think there's a lot more potential there for the relationship between Donavan and Brother, especially from a gameplay aspect. When you think about it, throughout the entire game, Donavan doesn't go up against Brother in any capacity. The most personal conflict he has in the entire game is with Foxy, because Foxy actually has a one-on-one fight with Donavan. But we don't see anything like that for Brother, especially considering there's supposed to be this close connection between the two of them. So that's kind of lackluster to me. That's kind of like, it leaves me like wanting more. So yeah, with that said, this game doesn't really, in terms of story anyway, really didn't live up to my expectations. I thought they would have done a lot more with Brother specifically. I think that's also a huge letdown for me. This new character that was pretty much the face of the game, right? This plate-animatronic, as admittedly kind of funny it looks, right? It looks kind of funny because, again, it's got wires connected to a paper plate, okay? I was still curious to see what they were going to do with this as a character, right? Not just as an animatronic, but, considering what FNAF is, right? Spirits possessing animatronics. I was curious to see what they were going to do with this character. And, I don't know, it just feels like beginning and end. That's all, Brother is only there for the beginning and the end. Along with, a little sprinkle of the cutscenes in the catalog and the 8-bit minigame. And that's about it. And you don't really see them ever again, nor do you really hear from them. You only hear the little dialogue at the beginning and then their monologue, which was, interesting monologue about change, but I feel like it would have had a lot more impact if we actually got to know Brother a lot more throughout the game. I think, safely put, the best way I can put this in terms of criticism, this game needs a lot more flesh with regards to story, right? Like, the Monitor series carries it a little bit, but if anyone plays this game on its own, right? Like, for example, I played the game on its own, not really remembering what happened in the Monitor series, and I was left kind of lost. That was me personally. I don't know if anyone else felt like that. Having to rely on a VHS series in order to understand a bit more about the story isn't really the best feeling. So I think in general, if they do plan on considering continuing the story, you know, through sequels or whatnot, I think they need to work better on the flesh, like the meat of the story throughout the gameplay, right? Not just have that ending monologue and that beginning, right? Like have like in this case, right, because brother and Donavan have this supposedly close connection, right, because the daughter possession idea, right? Like maybe they could have had something through gameplay, like Donavan realizing that brother is really his daughter in a way, like through the game, right? Would have been interesting to see, because the Monitor series just shows Donavan hugging brother out of nowhere, and it's like, how did Donavan figure out that brother is possessed by the daughter? You know what I mean? It's just like, it leaves you with so many questions of like, how did we get to this point? There's a lot of like missing in between connections that would make the story a lot more sensible, a lot more like, it would be a lot more fulfilling because we actually know how they got from point A to point B. I think that's the best way I could put it. Point A to point B, you have the points, but where's the connections? Like, I feel like there are definitely some connections there that are really lacking, and I hope that they can improve on that. But of course, with all that said, that has been this kind of story breakdown / story critique towards the end with regards to FNAF in real time. With that said, I still enjoyed the game. I'm still rooting for them. Hopefully they can learn from this if they end up seeing this video, you know. Like, I know sometimes there are developers that see these videos, so I like to, like, if I can, put a positive message there. Point is, I'm wishing the best of luck, and I hope you take the constructive criticism to heart, because I mean, at the end of the day, I just, you know, I would like this to at least like help, you know, get better, because that's pretty much what matters, right? But yeah, with all that said, I hope you did enjoy. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Lets me know you're enjoying the content and want to see more of it. The link will be in the description below as always. With that said, I'll see you in another video. Take care.